What is up, guys? Welcome back to part 3 of the Pt.3 build series. Today, new parts that have come in, so I'm gonna put those on, and then we're also gonna check the engine and make sure everything's good in there. And if everything's good in there, then we're gonna wash that. All right, so here we got one box, and then we've got a couple of smaller things. We've got a primary drive rear sprocket. We've got these are brakes. Front sprocket, chain,
Kobe!
We've got a twin air filter. Shout out twin air. And then we've got, what is this? We've got suspension oil for our front forks. And then we've got these 3 screws right here. They were on the ignition cover and they're Phillips head, and we stripped them out, not terribly, but just a little bit. So we just figured out we'd go ahead and replace those. We also got an NGK spark plug. And we've also got the gasket for our carburetor. We couldn't find any on Rocky Mountain, or they were actually sold out. So we bought this off eBay. All right, so we were starting to take the, we're gonna take the rear sprocket off first and put the new primary drive one on. But we noticed that it has these little like tabs almost, and they go across right here. If you pick it up, you can see that it's like a separate tab right there. So I think that's to keep the screws from turning instead of using Loctite. So we're gonna take these screws out and put the new primary drive sprocket on. So we got the bolts out of here, and then the clips came off with them. And look at this old sprocket. Ew! And then, so that one's trash, but we've got the new one here. It looks much better. So the next thing we're gonna do is grease this, put some grease in here, and grease up in there. So since we just did the rear sprocket, I figured we should come over to the engine and do the front sprocket, which it's held on with a C-clip, and then we should just pull it off. The C-clips on these can be a little tricky to get off, but what I do is get a skinny flathead, and then in between the little grooves on the top of that, I'll pry the thing up in there and just pop it off, and it should slide out. So we got the C-clip off, and then we just pull that sprocket off, and we're gonna clean that out a little bit before we put the new one on. We're gonna grab these screws, which are the side of the ignition cover, and then we're gonna put the ignition cover back on so that we can wash the engine without getting water down in the middle of the engine. So we've got the ignition cover back on.
Wow.
And then we're gonna take 3 of these screws, one right here, down there, and right there. The next thing I decided to do was put the gaskets in the carburetor. So this is the top of the carburetor where the choke and throttle go in, and this one didn't even have a gasket on it, but we've got a new OEM one, fits in there perfect. The next thing there is to do is to take this gasket off, and this one's completely shot, so we're gonna have to pry it off with a flathead screwdriver. All right, so luckily we got this gasket out all in one piece, but it is terrible. Like, it is completely shot. So let's get the new one in and see how that looks. All right, so we've got the new gasket in, and it's a little bit big, but that'll be pressed down when we put the ball back on and screw it together. So I cleaned out the air box to my best ability, got it pretty clean. And next we're gonna put in our twin air filter. And if you guys don't use twin air filters, I would highly recommend using them, because I use this in my race bike, I'm putting it in the Pt.3, and I also use it in my 110. So if you guys don't use them, I'd highly recommend them, or at least check them out. All right, so we actually had to cut about 1 centimeter off of the air filter on the bottom for it to fit, but we got it up in the air box. What is up, everybody? The last clip that y'all saw was actually 2 days ago. It's been raining pretty hard, and it's just been nasty outside, so I haven't been able to come outside and show y'all what I've been doing, and I actually haven't done anything. So we did get a new parts box though, which came with some more brakes. Those would be the rear brakes, I'm pretty sure. And then we got my petcock valve. Because the other one over there completely rusted. And then we got the other fuel lines for the carburetor. All right, so we've got our new petcock valve, and what we're gonna do is take the old one out and replace it with a new one. And the old one is just held on with 2 Phillips heads. All right, we've got the old one out, and as you can see, this rusted out right here, and then this just completely fell off. So there's an obviously better difference in this one. So let's get this new one in. So as I was installing the new petcock valve, I remember that the old one, the main stem or whatever you want to call it, was rusted out, and little pieces of rust fell into the tank. So we're gonna fill this tank up with water and see if we can get the rust pieces to float out. Poured it out, and a little bit of it won't come out, so we're just gonna set that in the sun and let the water evaporate. Next order of business is gonna be putting all the fuel lines on the carburetor. Got the new hoses on, the carburetor and the bowl, and they're looking good, but they haven't formed to the shapes of the old one yet. So we're putting the screws for the bowl back on, and remember to put your screws on in a crisscross pattern to make sure you don't crimp that gasket. All right, we've got the new petcock valve on, and all the water evaporated out of the tank, which is good. And then we got the pressure washer out. We got the engine off of its little workbench.
Wow.
And then we're gonna try and get this thing cleaned up, and then we put some water balloons over where the carburetor goes on so that we don't get water down in there. So let's get this thing cleaned up. First off, we sprayed some degreaser on it, and we're gonna let that sit for a minute, and then we're gonna spray it off with the pressure washer with the 40-degree nozzle, and then we'll probably put some slick product on there to just finish it off. So that's after 1 round of degreaser, and it's already looking 10 times better. I put some more degreaser like up here, and then a little bit in there, and we're gonna wash it one more time with just regular water, and then we're gonna spray it with slick products. I'm pretty sure that's about as clean as it's gonna get, which it looks pretty good. I'm sure I could do better if I split the cases and completely washed it, but I mean, I'm flipping this bike, so. I got a little plastic box and propped my engine up. That way it's just more, like, I can see it better when I'm working on it. But I got these 4 off, and I had to take the spark plug out because when I was using this, it wouldn't go past the spark plug. So I took spark plug out, and then pull those out, pull that off. Cylinder should come out, and then we'll be good. So no head. I got the head off, and I just pulled it off, and it looked fine. And I cleaned off the where the spark plug goes in right there, and I tried to clean that up. And then the inside of the cylinder is really clean, and then the top of the piston, I cleaned it off with just a rag. So I think I'm just gonna not take the cylinder off, because from what I can see, it's in perfect condition. So I'm just gonna put the head back on and start with this. All right, the head's back on. I tried to clean up these nuts, but I scrubbed them with a toothbrush and it did not really work. So I'm trying to figure out if we should take the engine and put it back in the frame or what we should do. So it's been a long time since I checked in last. It's been about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, but we've actually got the engine back in the bike. We put all the engine mounts back on. So we're starting to put the wire harness back on the bike. We got this all mounted up. These wires we connected it to the engine. I'm not real sure. I'm not an electrician, so I really don't know what's going on here. But I'm gonna put the carburetor back on, which goes right here, which is right here. So let's get that back on. All right, so we got the carburetor back on. New gaskets in there, new gaskets in there.
Nice.
We just gotta tighten that nut up. So we've got our fork oil, and we actually had to pour out 60 milliliters for each fork, I'm pretty sure. And then we're just gonna pour this oil into this fork. Pour it slowly, and if it starts to rise up, just stop pouring. and it'll drain back down. All right, so that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button to stay tuned in on this build series. Next video will be us putting everything together, but episode 5 will probably be starting. Episode 4 will definitely just be putting everything back on, making sure everything's got the right amount of liquids in it, all that kind of stuff. This is where the video stops.